What's up everybody, Daryl here again. Today I want to make a video on the irrigation system that I'm using at the plot. I want to make it more in depth for you to understand why I choose this route of irrigation. Whilst it does use a lot more water compared to some other types of system, but it's the cheapest, and not only the cheapest but also the best in the overall usage I can in the plot. Because there's a lot of reasons why I chose this route. Very much the reason why I'm still using it, and why even though I'm going to upgrade the system, I am going to use still overhead in my everyday usage. So I hope that this video will be informative. So let's get into it. Oh yeah, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and that little bell to get notified every time I post a video. So let's go into it and tell you what's on the plot. So already, no breakfast for today. So yeah, now we're at the plot. Today I just want to explain how my irrigation system is set up. So show you this first one, it makes it a bit easier. I'm just using these impact heads. These ones, when the water comes out, it comes out this blue nozzle, and it will just spray out, and then it will move this, and that will make it move around. And then once it reaches the end, it has a small mechanism that will switch it over, and it will go back until it locks back. So that's how these impact heads work. Yeah, I'm just using a small connector, some tubing to connect this. This is a 1/2 inch threaded. This is double threaded, and this is just threaded to tubing. And I have just a water clamp down here below, and just hold it by stakes. Something like an overhead system, I can just let it run. I don't have to move anything. It's set permanent, and I don't have to move everything every time I change over a crop. The reason why I still use this is, and why I started using this type of overhead, it's because these are available. Drip tape, from when I started and till now, 3 years, I only found one place that sells drip tape, not drip emitters, like those heavy duty ones. And the only time ever that I was able to find drip emitters was that a wholesaler bought 4, if I'm not mistaken, and I bought almost all 3. Someone else bought 1 more. So it's like drip tape and drip emitters is not something readily available. I have to order it online, and there's much more cost also additional with using drip tape, as in the labor cost. Something like this, I can turn it on and it'll just work. I don't have to keep moving tubing around. And being that I can find this locally with all these connectors, makes it way easier for me to use all the time. So I'm using these guys, I'm using all these on timers. This could look daunting. Here's my timers. There's these two extras, these 2 bottom ones. Those I don't use, those are going for misters and the drip tape that I'm going to talk about later, not in this video. But all these 5 ones are all for the overhead system. All these overheads, I use 2 impact heads, the overhead systems, and they're linked together. Let me go to the other side because the sun will not play nice. So you can see here I have an overhead here, and at the other side of the plot where I started, there's an overhead, and between them there's another one that's right about here. I link these impact heads with each other, so two are connected to each other. In the past I could have got away with 3, but you have to put valves and restrict the flow, and then you can make it work. But most of the time I just use 2, because that's the pressure I can use for this whole system. You can imagine this overhead, its range is 90 degrees. So you can imagine from there, it will go to that overhead right there. And right behind it, I don't think you're going to see it, but suppose over there, behind this one, there's another overhead. That's at the end. So you can imagine all the corners, it's 90 degrees. So from here to that overhead, the middle one, and to the other middle one on this side, that's its total range of watering. It doesn't need to go any further. When you're setting up these overhead systems, you make sure that you hold, let me show this a little better. You gotta make sure that you hold this impact, and then you can focus it on where it goes. You want this stream of water to overlap with the other impact heads, like this in the middle. You want to overlap it, because that's how you're gonna go get an even coverage over the whole plot. So for context, this one, if you have it on for 1 minute, the middle one being double the overall area that needs water, that has to be 2 minutes. And the middle one, if that has 4 times the overall area where it needs water, so that needs a total of 4 minutes to run for you to have even coverage over the whole plot. So you can see this one is the middle one, the middle one between the two ends, and that's the middle one. I want to show you the watering, but I think it's better to just show you piece by piece how each one of them worked. So if I can, I'm gonna paint this down, and then you can see how it works and visualize it, because it's not complicated. It's just you have to understand it. Once you understand it, it becomes easy, and then you can build any way you want it to work. It will work. So let me go and show you guys in painting how it works. So I'm gonna try doing this with one hand. Let's see how it goes. But anyways, this is the block. I'm not gonna paint the beds because it will make it a bit easier for you to understand. So the first two ones are this one and this one. Those two are grouped together. Again, they have a coverage of 45 degrees. So I use them from here, and the tool area will be watering to around here. And this one and this one is linked up together, so you can imagine like this. These two, watering 45 degrees, will water this whole plot here. They do have a little overlap at the heads, the main one, the middle one, so that you can get an even coverage over the whole plot. So this one, this one, this one, and this one, all of these have a 90 degree that they irrigate. So let's put this one zone 1, this is zone 2. So zone 1 and 2 is 90 degrees that they work on. So now I'm going to talk about the middle ones. It's this one, this one, this one, and this one. These have a total area where they water of 100 and 180. So this one waters from this overhead, the number 2. I'm gonna try to make this, but it's not gonna look pretty. Something like that. But either ways, it waters from this overhead to this overhead to this overhead. When you're busy setting it up, you make sure that the water flow comes over, it passes this overhead, and this overhead. So you will get a little bit water on the side, but that doesn't really make a difference because you need the edge to be watered. Most of the times you have problem with the edge, and most of the time on the top side. So for me, in my case, this will be considered zone 3, and 3, 4, 4. And all of these ones we have a total radius, let's say zone 3 plus 4 is 180 degrees. And so all of these 3 are zoned like this. So I have the beds set up already. If I'm using half of the plot, I can turn this one off. I can put a small valve and turn this one off and change the irrigation to go to this one. So these 2 are linked up together. And then I can turn off this system and only run half of the plot. But I can do it both sides. So if I'm using this side only, I can turn off this side. So turning off zone 2 and 3, I'll put a valve on it and close it and put it on the zone the middle one, that's being the zone 5. So that I can irrigate only half the pot. If I have to switch over, the same thing, I just turn off all of these ones and I can water the plots. So being the last one, the zone 5, its total radius, if you can guess, it's a total of 360. I just butchered this right now. Close enough. This being the biggest one, and you can already imagine, this is zone 5. This is 360. So now we're going on the irrigation side. So, like I explained last time, if this one, I'm using it for 1 minute, this one has a total area that has doubled from the first one. So for me to have even water coverage, I need to turn it in 2 minutes. And this one being 4 times the total land area, yeah, it needs to go to 4 minutes to water the whole plot. So this is how you can get an even water coverage. So yeah, let's talk about why I still use this system. Like the beginning I said, why I started with this system is because that's the only thing you can find readily available. I can find those overhead system almost at any hardware store around here in Aruba. But something like a drip tape or drip emitters, those things even at garden supply stores, you don't find it. You have to order online to find some of those products. So, and there's also some things to consider. Like, I would still suggest you using impact heads to start up because it's more easy, and when you direct seed your crops, it'll make sure that it's well watered. It's an easier system, so you don't have to keep moving everything around. That's a good time savings, and for me, in my context, why I still use overhead and why even though I'm revamping my whole irrigation system, I still see overhead as a priority to keep it online for me to use. I'm still working, so I don't have much time to spend on moving air, like if I'm using drip emitters, to move them every time. But even so, if you're starting out, it makes the cost savings is a lot. Like you're gonna save a lot of money going overhead compared to drip emitters. Like the last video I said, the high cost to entry, because like you have to send 3 to 4 lines of drip tapes each bed. I have a total of 20 beds there. 3 to 4 times 40 feet times 20 beds. That's a lot of drip tape, and that's very expensive. And for me to even consider this, it took a few years for me to consider using drip tape or drip emitters on the plot. So overhead is a low barrier to entry. It works. It still works because I'm still gonna use it. It's still very efficiently in the overall usage of it. If I direct seed a plant or I transplant some plants, I'll turn on the drip, the overhead, to make sure that they get cooled down quickly and not get affected by the heat. And that's also a good consideration in overhead. In the afternoon, around 1:30 o'clock, half of the overhead system will go on and keep the crops cool. So I don't have much problems with heat when you're using drip emitters. When you transplant a crop, you can't really water the crop itself. You water deep into the soil, but you can't water really the crop. So having an overhead, you can cool down the crop or make sure that it doesn't go into shock. So if it goes into shock, you got a week more, you have to wait for the crop to get done. So these are the considerations you have to take for impact heads, and why I still recommend impact heads, even though, because it's easy to find here in Aruba, and the connections are also easy to find here. So now I'm switching over to a hybrid system with drip and overhead. I still recommend overhead because, and I still using overhead. I want to push the point that it still makes sense for my context to use it. So I hope I push the point across that why I use overhead, why it still makes sense to keep using overhead for the time savings, the even water coverage, the heat, the cooling of the crops during the day. it still makes sense for me to use overhead, even though I'm switching over to a different system, being a hybrid system, drip and overhead. It still makes sense to keep overhead. If you're starting out, I'd say just start with overhead. It's way easier, and whilst it does use a lot more water, once you figure out how to work with the system perfectly, the cost savings and the time savings is immense. So I'll make another video in the future about drip tape, because I'm going to be setting up that system in a few weeks. So I'll make a video about that. I really hope you find this very informative to figure out the irrigation system that you want to use. For some farmers, they're switching over from drip to overhead because of the benefits, even though you lose a lot of water. And yeah, peace. Have a great day. Awesome bom dia. See you next time.